Nirn is home to various beings with rich and diverse cultures. Where some have thrived and expanded, others remain only on the yellowed pages of history books or the ruins of their once prospering cities. That is, if they haven't been erased completely from both. The Falmer's tragic fate was the latter, to be nearly struck from any records in the landscape of Tamriel. An unsurprising fact given the North's tendency to rid their past of anything they consider unsavory or overly dark, with the most prominent examples being details regarding Dragon's rule through their cult and information on Archmage Galder and his sons. Yet ruins related to the former remain untouched, and some of Galder's stories stayed available to uncover thanks to both one's initiative to explore and the book Lost Legends by Talsgard the Elder, an archivist of Winterhold. And it is in this very city where we may find an ancient, legendary building, once the source of pride of the capital of the eponymous hold, now feared and shunned. This bastion appears to be an example of the Snow Elves' magnificent architectural achievements as opposed to Nordic craftsmanship, the last one on the mainland that has not been destroyed or having had its materials used to make a human structure. Zu tinvak do brus do geviltseod, gard do lot lu. Drem Yol Lok, Zur is Valbo, and welcome to the Archmage quarters in the College of Winterhold. Here today in my makeshift study, we shall explore the possibility that the very building we stand in now is the only one raised by the ancient Falmar that is still standing in its more or less original state in Kaizal, Skyrim. Before we continue, I wish to express deep gratitude to the fellow scholar without whom this research would not have existed, and namely, Kudavanti Jahan. I hope I pronounced that correctly, and deepest apologies if I did not. It is your brief mention of the college possibly being Snow Elven in origin and nudge for me to make an investigation on the topic that pushed me to look more closely into this subject. Aside from the brilliant idea, I cannot thank you enough for your steadfast support of my work and insightful comments. Unslat kogan damin dok ak tovit, lotonikan di balan fadon. Always a pleasure, and I sincerely hope I do your idea justice and that you and the rest of you, di braan bovitaan, my fellow adventurers, enjoy. Dal Bruce, we return to the college. We will firstly go over the arguments in support of the statement that it was indeed originally raised by the ancient Falmar and maintains most, if not all, of its initial appearance, and thus put the magical institution's recorded history into question. Then we shall go over finer details that also support the claim that the college was originally built by the Snow Elves. And finally, we will offer brief theories, or rather one theory that will be shortly expanded on regarding possible causes of the Great Collapse that are relevant to our current investigation. Without further ado, let us focus on the inked pieces of parchment where I have documented my research. Let us begin. Mora now Minda. The College of Winterhold is one of the most unique buildings in Skyrim. Its architecture is notably distinctive from that of other structures we come across during our travels. Aside from the overall appearance and alignment of the building, the compositions of lighter stones in particular, often characterized by protruding ingrained columns with the same nuances, are quite striking. They appear to be made of limestone, with this particular rock being an integral material in Aliot and later Imperial architecture. Whereas the college's appearance drastically differs from that of Atmoran temples and Dwemer cities, its resemblance to the edifices and remnants in the Forgotten Vale, the Snow Elven sanctuary of Aurbic that has remained hidden for a millennia, is quite striking. The structuring between the two locations is more than comparable, from the used materials to the ornaments in the interior of Winterhold's magical institution and that of surviving edifices in the Vale. The polygonal and oval shapes respectively, with some being indented and others jutting, also bear similarities to one another. It is important to note that such constructional details are extremely characteristic for two other elven races, that of the Altmer and the Aelids, whose own architectures bear quite a few similarities between one another. Gastinus Flores, historian of the Masons Guild, shares the following in his work Notes on Elven Architecture. The more perceptive of historians, such as Cantabir Congonius of Skingrad, have discerned clear similarities when comparing settlements of the Altmeri and Aeliad, unmistakably because they share the same ancestors. Where the Aelids departed Somerset Isle, the Altmer remained, yet their structures share many common elements. One only need walk the ruins near Braville, then compare paintings of Skywatch for corroboration. As we see, the College of Winterhold shares much with the buildings of the three mentioned elven cultures, even if it lacks, to quote historian Flores once more, the strong pointed steeples. It is true that the similarities between the ruins and better preserved buildings we see in the Vale and Winterhold's magical institution aren't absolute. There are differences, such as the far more elegant and symmetric positioning of the stones composing the columns and edifices in Auriel's sanctuary. Ornaments and accents are also distinctive and appear to have been made of metal, maybe bronze, and we do not see this anywhere in the college either. Notwithstanding, I do believe the similarities and undeniable presence of elven architectural elements outweigh the differences. Furthermore, the Forgotten Vale is a sanctuary and could have been crafted differently to other snow elven buildings in order to stand out as such. I digress. The darker stones appear to be a Nordic touch, although it is uncertain if this building material was not originally utilized by the Snow Elves and then by the Atmorans after they sacked their cities and took apart their structures to make their own, sometimes using their surviving enemies as slave labor. Vaza, true. We do not see such rocks in neither the Forgotten Vale nor Aeliad ruins, which weakens my last statement, but it is worth to note once again that the former is a sanctuary, hence its architecture may have distinctive features saved fare vac stadde, and that, in spite of similarities between Altmeri, Aeliad, and Falmeri designs, each culture is unique and has aught that sets it apart. Noldar pogaslan nekin, mufent togato fandist. The first most glaring question is, how come the Atmorans did not destroy the building given its origins? I believe the answer to that is rather simple. Whether or not the original purpose of the college, which we shall focus on later, was similar to its role now, I strongly believe the powerful magics we see flowing through the place were already present then. Daarin slujaril brus Lok Thu'um, foslos ragron munnewani. The Snow Elves had an unusually high aptitude for the arcane, therefore having a building soaked with magic appears as something that would have been normal for them. Could the dragon cult and its leaders have undone the spells, destroyed it, and rebuilt it in Nordic fashion? I would say likely yes. Atmoran mages were deeply respected Vanist Lotsuliek for their great power, and with a Dova on their side, for dragons are masters of the arcane and lesser aged beings, it would have been possible. But I believe both they, Arzok Lotsonake, would have rationally chosen to keep the building as it is and utilize it and its arcane energies instead of unnecessarily making their and their subjects' lives more difficult. Perhaps the dark stones were added Nordic touch we mentioned earlier, but the rest remained as it was. Which brings us to the next question, or rather, ought that will be put into question: the college's history. In the book A Minor Maze that briefly summarizes Usnuti Dobromunar and how its modern day name Labyrinthian came about, it is skeptically shared that Shalador stood at the forefront of a movement to enact higher standards among mages and to discourage spell use among the common castes. This effort is dubiously credited with the original organization and formation of the schools of magic and of the foundation of the College at Winterhold. But tales of Shalador, as the unknown author of A Minor Maze states in his or her book, are often, and I quote, hyperbole, or outright fabrication, with the claim that he built the entire city of Winterhold with the whispered spell considered to be such by most scholars. One of the oldest mentions of the magical institution that is considered reliable is in Brother Matnan's Atlas of Dragons, written during the Second Era, while Shalidor lived in the First. Regardless, according to our theory that the building is snow elven in origin, it will have to be much older, raised before Isgramor and his mythologized 500 companions set foot on Sarek Head, the very locale where Winterhold and more specifically the college stands, or at least what remains of the rock. The lack of certain sources on the college's existence prior to the Second Era does not discredit the currently discussed speculation. As mentioned before, the Nords have a bad habit of erasing parts of their history they mislike, and they intended, especially High King Harald, who reigned in the First Era, to rid Skyrim of any remaining snow elves and signs of Valmeri culture entirely. It is more than likely that the Nordic rulers and chroniclers deliberately omitted the college's real origins, which would also explain the lack of clarity as to when it was actually raised and by whom. If we go by what we previously discussed regarding why the building was not destroyed, then rewriting the bastion's history and attributing its creation to a legendary Nordic mage is a logical route for the Atmorans to have taken, given what we know of their tendencies. Our next question is, what was the fortress's original purpose? It does not strike me as a sanctuary due to the differences between it and Auriel's Haven in the Vale. I ruminate that its current role is perhaps not so dissimilar to what the Snow Elves used it for, magical work and perhaps study. Nonetheless, I prefer my second speculation, that it was a castle from where a Falmer ruled the region. We know nearly nothing of this race of Mer's society, but given their thriving in unforgiving climates where others would wane and wither, their architectural ingenuity and strong affinity for magic, it would make sense for them to have raised a bastion in one of Skyrim's northernmost shores and soak it with arcane energies. I would not be surprised if Valmeri leadership was closely tied to Suliekselu, magical power, given what little we know of them and the comparisons historians make between the Snow Elves and the Altmer. Amati vod zokvloga puvahe. Something one sees depicted quite often inside the college is the Aurbic Eye, a symbol named for the Orbis, the chaos from which Anu and Padomai crafted the cosmos. It is also referred to as the very cosmos itself, and it is the universal symbol of one's connection to magic and Nirn's essence. It is the emblem of most arcane shops and organizations, including the no longer functioning Mages Guild. The college calls the Aurbic Eye the Eye of Shalidor or the Eye of Magnus. Nonetheless, it is more than possible that these stone carvings and the stained glass adorning the building were placed there by the original inhabitants of the bastion, the Snow Elves according to our current theory. Small details may support my speculation. The first and most obvious one being the Falmer's astounding magical abilities. A race so arcanely gifted and inclined would definitely make use of the Aurbic Eye to embellish the interior of their structures, their apparel, and maybe even their body with tattoos and makeup. Bruzal for dar sinda minse Shalidor of Magnus, nus nifen maferaklos minse orbis dist. Another small detail in support of the Aurbic Eye depictions in the college having been present in the structure originally is that stained glass is not a particularly common practice among the Nords, ancient and modern alike. They are true artists with stone, metal, wood, and fabrics, but the previously mentioned craftsmanship is not something they are known for. Bruma, the northernmost city in Cyrodiil that borders Skyrim, and which is inhabited by a large number of Nords, is dominated by their architecture, and not a single stained glass can be found there either, aside from the ones in the Temple of Talos, as is common for imperial sanctuaries all over the mentioned province. Perhaps this is Valmeri work instead, as are the etched stones around the college. The latter are also more refined than what we are used to seeing in ancient Nordic temples. Arquetsego los Vomedas. It bears a striking resemblance to the Tel Var stones, arcane parts of the white gold tower that allegedly possess the essence of creation. Scholars have proven that they do contain magical properties that lay dormant. These stones were utilized by the Aliads. Once again, we have alt related to an elven race in the college, provided that the rocks etched with the eye are indeed Tel Var stones, of course. The ancient Falmer were a prosperous society that more than likely had diplomatic relations to their fellow Mer outside of Skyrim's boundaries. It is entirely possible the mineral in question was imported from Aliad-ruled Cyrodiil. If we unleash our imagination, we may even theorize that the snow elf in charge of the bastion we are currently speculating about had Heartland High Elven blood him or herself, or one of their close confidants was an Aliad. Dal Quetzegol, we return to the stone. It being magically charged is extremely fitting for a building governed by one who belongs to an exceptionally arcanely gifted race, whether the college's original purpose was similar to what it is now or not. While it is entirely logical for the Aurbic Eye engravings and stained glass to have become a part of the building's interior after it was fashioned into a magical institution, the previously offered speculations hold quite a lot of merit as well, Codivo Nardralun. We observed and analyzed, perhaps even overanalyzed, the most striking ought about the college's interior and exterior, except for one place, a sublocation that is rather unpleasant to spend time in: the Midden. How does this underground chamber, filled with bones and a couple of Daedric objects, fit into the college's snow elven origins? There are two angles to look at this from. The first is that it merely served as storage for the Falmer vault, or was still used for more dangerous and morally questionable experiments by the elven mages. This could have also included the study of Daedric artifacts, for one would not need to worship a prince or align themselves with the lesser Daedra to examine aught related to them. It could have also served as a dungeon of sorts. Or it was created and utilized only after the Utmogans, or maybe even more modern Nords, began residing in the college. Its interior is more akin to that of a Nordic tower as opposed to a basement crafted by snow elves, therefore the latter claim holds more water in my opinion. Although it is worth to note that most materials compositing Nordic buildings in Skyrim were originally a part of snow elven structures. Now that we covered everything in support of the College of Winterhold originally being a Falmer building, let us offer two short theories, or rather one theory that can be expanded on the enigmatic Great Collapse. Dar Alal Drakna caused for the people to lose their faith in the magical institution and go so far as to blame its professors and students for it, due to the college remaining untouched while the majority of Winterhold was completely swallowed by the waves of the Sea of Ghosts. Many, especially mages, attempted to convince the populace that they had no hand in the phenomenon, blaming the devastating event on the eruption of Sakol Strunmar, Red Mountain, and that the college remained untouched only thanks to the powerful magics flowing through it. Many theories from braan bovitaan, fellow adventurers, have emerged concerning the Great Collapse, and here the short ones we shall share rely heavily on imagination, and another speculation of mine I speak of in a different research, and will be related to the building being of snow elven origin. What if the mages teaching and studying there in year 122 of the 4th era uncovered arcane energies or even an artifact of Falmeri origin randomly and tried to wield it with disastrous results? And the only reason the building, not necessarily they, were not leveled with the ground were the snow elven protection spells circling the college. And here we will make mention of the speculation from another research of mine I spoke of. What if the magic Sandor artifact they found was closely connected to Auriel and was not treated with the care and respect required? Ha voslarum agnaslarum, kirese Auriel. These enigmatic twin-revered dragons inhabiting the Vale, to whom said investigation is dedicated, could have very well caused the Great Collapse themselves. Nous zuam vit dimar. In my investigation on Voslarum and Naslarum, the final theory I share regarding their curious location is that they are loyal servants of their father, Auriel, who is widely accepted as an aspect of Akatosh, given his role and depiction in the elven pantheons. I state that they are meant as a subtle test regarding pilgrims' willpower and inner strength to determine who is worthy of completing their pilgrimage in the sanctuary by secretly draining the worshipper's vitality, given Falrot Mulag. The word of power etched into the unique word wall there is one from the Drain Vitality shout. Olkire Arkare Donist Borma, they either sensed the sacrilegious treatment of his magic and or artifact given Dove's outstanding arcane affinity and sensitivity, or were outright sent there by him to punish those who dare disrespect him. Being Klar Ros, water-loving Dovahzul, as evidenced by their choice of residence within the Vale and their actions, instead of raining shouts upon Winterhold, they swam and shouted beneath the surface of the Sea of Ghosts, causing for devastating waves to crash and devon, swallow everything they could reach. Afterwards, the twins returned to their lake in the Vale. As one sees, this speculation relies on a lot of imagination, and it would require for Voslarum and Naslarum to have survived until the Fourth Era, as opposed to having been resurrected by Alduin, which I do touch on in my investigation on them. Nonetheless, I believe it is a fun and interesting addition to the theory that the College of Winterhold was raised by snow elves and is soaked with their magics, given their reverence for Auriel. And there is nothing more to add. I do hope I did your idea justice, Kudavanti Jahan, and that you and the rest of you liked this research, which has now come to an end. The snow elves and the enigma surrounding them is something that deeply fascinates me and makes me crave for more discoveries related to them. The fact that there is compelling evidence suggesting the College of Winterhold could have very well been built by this race of Mer excited me immensely. It was an utmost honor and pleasure to put this research together, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed. As always, I adore exchanging thoughts and knowledge with you, Difadonne, so please do not hesitate to share what is on your mind and offer your own speculations. Arkun Slat Kogan, thank you all for your support, as always. I look forward to spending time with you again, but until then, Lok Thu'um. Hasokak min dokhi nusnutid, mudosh vofarik min datte nolni, Difadonne.